Hey guys, Ralphie here from KiwiRadio.nz. Thanks for stopping by on the channel. Just wanted to give you a quick update as to what's happening in 2024 with the job market. It is tough out there right now in New Zealand, for me anyways, and probably for a lot of people. Well, anyways, I've been going down the Reddit rabbit hole, for example, and for the past 7 months, it seems like it's the same script for a lot of people. Applying for hundreds of jobs, getting very little interviews, and taking 6 to 7 months average, sometimes more, on finding a role, any role, minimum wage. And I'm feeling the pinch as well. So I have been jumping about from one temp role to another. The previous job I was in, before moving house kind of thing, I was there for 6 or 7 years, and the only reason why I moved is they're like a stationery company. So investment firm, an American investment firm, actually bought them out, and this investment firm owns lots of different companies, be it in logistics, manufacturing, even sports clubs, all sorts of things. And it's just this one super rich dude who buys out a lot of assets, and he bought up this stationery company that I was working for, and we had lots of retail stores, and they cut all retail stores down to just one distribution center, and that's that. So anyways, that was my kind of long-term employer, and from there I've just been jumping from one temp role to another. 6 months fixed term here. It's been tough, because even if I'm in a fixed term role, I still put my everything in the job. I try and obviously impress my boss, my colleagues, so that I can hopefully transition to full time. And there's a lot of promises too, with hey, do a good job, and you'll get a full time role. But I don't know if you guys have seen the documentary by Vice, Permatemps, and they talk about temporary workers jumping from one contract to another, never really landing a full-time role. And so that's kind of where I've been at lately. And my last temporary role was a 6-month assignment. It actually started off as 1 month. It was in the public transportation sector, my first public role as opposed to private sector, and it was good. I find that a lot of the people that I work with in that role, dare I say it, are not as hard working. There's less pressures, obviously, because they've got, maybe they've got government cash outs and things like that for the role. But a lot of government sector roles are really not doing very well in New Zealand either, especially with national in government. I've heard from friends that are saying, in their roles there's 60% layoffs, that kind of thing. And for those that are fortunate enough to stick around, they're doing 2 to 3 times the workload that they normally do. And I'll give you an example. One friend works in social housing, and they were saying that there's definitely 60% cutbacks there. But what's really hard is their contractors, who are the builders, don't even know what's happening with their contracts, and they're only going to know about it until they finish the projects, so they finish the housing build that they're doing or something like that. So there's a lot of scary stories out there of what's happening with people's roles. So anyways, going back to this transportation job, I really enjoyed it. The manager that I was with, he was super cool, and that made a huge difference, because I've been in companies where the managers just really suck, really pushy, really hierarchy, political, and there's a lot of that. I used to work for a guy that was ex-military, and that was high pressure. He would often send me home crying, because he was just an intense kind of guy. I actually remember talking to him once going, hey, you've won, mate. Like, there's nothing more you can squeeze out of me. And he's like, oh, it's still a threat. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever. So there's that. But that aside, really enjoyed my last temp role. And now I've just kind of like gone to my brother's wedding overseas, which was a really good experience. So that was kind of like money that we didn't really have. But at the same time, you know, like I'm trying to build closeness with the family, the small family that I have. And so it was really important for us to go see his wedding. And my son, who's very young, managed to go on his first overseas trip. So that was really cool. But now that I've come back to reality, I've come back to New Zealand post-holiday, it's been, oh my goodness, so tough trying to find work. And even like minimum wage work is really hard. On average, you know, I've been applying for jobs and there's like, it tells you, you know, there's 100 people or more that have applied for this role. I've landed a few interviews, but I feel like the interviews, and I've gone like first, second round interviews, I almost feel like they're treating the interview as like free consultancy kind of things, where they've got existing issues in their company and they're sort of fishing out ideas and sort of farming ideas. That's how I felt, because they would always ask me like what you would do in this XYZ situation. And then because I'm an ideas guy, I've recently taken like a personality test of what I'm like, and apparently I, you know, come up with novel solutions to problems, and that's just the type of person I am. So, you know, I'm happy to give out my 2 cents. And I always getting, you know, the feedback is, you did really well, you interviewed really well, we're very impressed with you. However, due to a larger number of applicants this time round, you weren't successful. And it's like, and I'm like top 4, you know, this and that, but just never getting the role. I'm just looking over my shoulder. There's a local business I usually go to, and interestingly enough, looks like they're closed now. So anyways, back to my story. Yeah, I just feel like they're kind of like farming for ideas. And I've heard these terms online saying there's a lot of like ghost jobs out there, meaning the companies interview people without the intention of actually hiring anyone, or like just giving false hopes to their current employees so that they look like they're trying, but they're actually squeezing as much value out of the existing employees, that sort of stuff. But without that kind of like rabbit hole and things like that, I just feel kind of like a little bit used going to these interviews, or going, some have been remote, some have been in person. Not many in person, actually, mostly remote, which is interesting in itself. Because, you know, I'm an old school kind of guy, you know, you go to a job, they interview you in person, right? Because that's how you get the natural reaction of who you're placing. But yeah, I'm just feeling a little bit, I've lost my confidence, man. Like, it sucks, because I know I'm a good value add for any company, but I feel like they're not really hiring, or just kind of milking the ideas. And going back to that temp role that I had earlier, even then there's been some process improvements that I mentioned just due to previous roles that I've had, and they actually implemented those ideas and wanted me to teach their existing staff about the ideas and how to train them before I left. And I was like, actually, this is kind of like a value add thing. This is not really what you hired me for. And I don't know, I just felt like I was kind of pushing myself out of a job because I wanted to impress the employer and actually keep my job and transition to full-time. It never occurred. So here I am. I'm around about a month and a bit unemployed. And my brother, who works in logistics, he was telling me how even his sector, and he's got a background in finance, even his sector is really struggling, or there's a bit of a downturn. There's just boats that are in ports standing still, kind of thing. So he's actually set up his own consultancy business, and while he's picking up clients, he said, one of the things I appreciate about my brother, he's really resourceful, but he said, rather than sitting there and not getting any business and feeling sorry for yourself, always push to improve yourself in other ways. So he's actually upskilling himself in Python and things like that, which is really cool. I really appreciate that motivation, and I've been doing the same as well. So I landed up getting sort of like some casual work, and this is like 4 hours a week. This is nothing. This is like a 95% haircut of what I'm normally getting, right? But at the same time, what I appreciate about the what I'm doing right now, and I'm actually getting some casual work in the disability sector. But I've done a few shifts now, but as I kind of do more and more, I think they've seen the value of what I can do, and how I actually presented myself at the interview is say, hey, I'm from a background of poverty, having grown up in poor areas of Asia, and I've got this big level of empathy, because when I came to New Zealand, others gave me that, that chance, that fighting chance. And so that's kind of how I pitched myself to the foundation I'm working with, and the families who interviewed me directly. Got a couple of shifts in now, so I'm working with some Prader-Willi syndrome clients. That means they just can't stop eating and that. And it's been an interesting ride so far. And I'm hoping to pick up a few more clients that are autistic. And I've just met one family that seems promising, but at the same time, again, I'm sort of in that space where I'm like waiting to see what happens. And I've had some interesting interviews that I just want to share with you that I've had, like just people that have mucked me around. Like there's been roles that are like they say they're advertising for full-time people, and it turns out that it's actually casual. It's like 0-hour contracts. There was a security company, interestingly enough, that apparently there's some data centers around Auckland, and some tech data centers, and there's like 6 layers of security in that. And I was like, cool, this sounds really interesting. And I met them up for coffee. Yep, great. Look, this sounds like it's full-time, whatever. And then they turn around and hand me a casual contract with 0 hours. But at the same time, also, I had to pay for my own security clearance license, and it was like $500 or so. So there was no guarantee of work, yet I had to, pitch in a bit of an investment to get in the industry. Similarly, I, went for real estate, and real estate agents are getting really creative right now because the housing is just plummeting. Like that, everyone's holding what they can, and our real estate agent dropped us some flowers, in the case that we might have to sell quickly or something. I don't know, like. And but yeah, so anyways, real estate agent, I got the interview, and same thing. It was casual, 0-hour contracts, commission only. And I was like, man. And at the same time, I had to invest in a real estate license, which was like $1,000 or something or more. So, but I know for a fact that just real estate, unless you're going in that 2.5 mil and upwards kind of property, where everything's being auctioned for overseas investors, anything under that is just kind of like tanking. There's a lot of people underwater, so I don't know. I didn't go down that route, and the best experience that I had recently, and I'm going to go to the other camera because just, I'm going to be editing this, make it engaging, not just me ranting and crying. There's a lot of crying in these behind this laughter, awkward laughter. But the most interesting one is, like, I applied for this job. It was minimum wage. I was like, man, better than nothing. It was a warehouse job, so it wasn't hard, pick packing, that kind of thing. Same thing, man. Like, they called me up. They were like, yep, hey, if you sign this piece of paper, we've got you guaranteed work to start on Monday. Hey, great, man. That sounds awesome. Monday start. I did the stupidest thing and signed the contract without viewing it, which I advise no one to do, regardless of what promises they have. Like, read the blimmin' contracts. Like, it was uncanny. It was like, it was out of character for me to sign something without reading, because I always read contracts. But it is so true that if you've been beaten down so much, you're at that really emotional state and you're vulnerable, that you will just do anything, and someone promises this and they promise you an immediate Monday start. So I sign away. Turns out, again, it was casual. They actually ended up emailing me on a Sunday, which is the day before I was meant to start, saying, hey, by the way, you need to confirm that you're okay with this kind of thing, or confirm your hours. I ended up going to the job on Monday half an hour early. I think it was like 7:30 a.m. I was on site ready to go with the uniform I was given. I was checking my emails and I was like, oh, I hadn't replied to the Sunday email yet saying that I'll be here. So I said, hey, I'm here. What's happening? Turns out that they reached their quota of temps. And because I was unconfirmed, like, who checks their emails on a Sunday? Very annoyed. They wanted me, they just said, hey, turn around. You won't be needed. I actually said to them, due to the early hours, actually moving forward, would it be okay if I just took 2 days a week while my wife was working from home, and I'd have to drop off my kid at daycare? I could do later hours. Actually, that would be the best. And they were like, oh, this is not part-time work. This is, full-time work. But really, it was like a weekly rolling 0 hours contract. It was terrible. It was terrible. The only time I'd seen those kind of contracts is when I was in England, and when you're doing the overseas thing and you're under 25, it's okay to take those kind of 0 hour contracts, and you're traveling, which is what I did. I actually ended up working for a waitering agency and had some really fun times, because I got to actually see some celebrities, some famous musicians, that kind of thing, and check out some cool events that I normally wouldn't have access to. Like, I remember seeing like paparazzi outside, and here we were serving these very well-known politicians or celebrities, and it was kind of a dream, actually, just to kind of see how out of this world the how the haves have it all and the have-nots really don't. And but anyways, the only time I saw like 0 hour contracts really was when I was in England. And never dreamt that it would happen here in New Zealand. But there's a lot of that at the moment. There's a lot of migrants coming into the country. So I think, as well as the pool of jobs that are available, you're competing with that. So you're actually, it's sort of like a race to the bottom with wages, because you're competing with equally desperate people, okay, and that don't have visas or something like that, but will work for much less. There's that. There's like rising house interest, so everyone's kind of like desperate to take whatever role they can, because they've got all this debt or collateral that they have to pay back. There's just a lot of desperation in New Zealand at the moment, and Yeah, man, it's tough. It's tricky. And here I am driving in my car just kind of to vent, unscripted. I'd like to know what you think about it. If you're, experiencing anything similar, um, I'd love to know. I'd love to know. But yeah, back to my sort of like journey professionally. It's been hard because I studied audio engineering when I was younger. I was really into music. In my 20s, I was actually signed for a bit, and I really gave it my all with the music career for a while. Um, and that kind of industry, like the 1% of 1% are successful. But I gave it my all. Um, and so rather than, I guess, while my friends were studying, getting their masters and things like that, I didn't have that level of education. Like I kind of went straight to the workforce. And I hear everyone going, like a master's degree or education is not uh, a green pass to better wages. But I often think whether or not I could have applied myself even more. Like sometimes I wish that because I love like mentoring and things like that, sometimes I wish like there's just a huge amount of like teaching jobs out there. I could have done that for 3 years, expanded my, what was it, what I could do, what I was certified to do. But yeah, so that's not my journey. And now as I'm 40, I'm really feeling it. Like in your 20s, you're kind of like companies want to hire you because you're young, you're probably cheap labor compared to, you know, the previous generation who are used to like uh, unions and all that fancy stuff, overtime, all that's gone, man, like in New Zealand. So it's a race to the bottom. But I often think I want to know what your feedback is, whether education actually gave you a leg up in life. Um, but yeah, in your 30s, you're just doing the rat race. My CV, it looks like I've been jumping from one role to another, but the reality behind it is because we were just chasing, the cheapest housing at the time, and so you're kind of trying to cut your costs, but at the same time, right? Make sure that you're not traveling too far for your job, that kind of thing. So, and I'm kind of a little bit of a nomad myself. Like, I don't like to stick around in flats that are not dry and things like that because I've been in terrible living situations before meeting my wife, my partner. She's kind of like the saving grace of how I've kind of bettered myself in life. But at the same time, yeah, so even my wife, who's had the same career for decades, due to this sort of like the national stuff coming in with cutbacks, it's just like she's freaked out, because if like we'd be screwed if she lost her role. We'd lose the house, everything, man. We'd just lose it all. And we're actually so poor right now that we're having to regularly eat at her parents because, man, like everything goes to our mortgage, man. Like mortgage is do you think that mortgages are like glorified rents? Like it just feels like, you know, the borrower is slave to the lender, as Dave Ramsey would say. Um, you're just yeah, you just owe so much. The bank really owns your stuff. So it's either investment companies or banks that own like 95% of the planet, isn't it, right now? They are the tallest buildings in the city, as I've said before. But anyways, that's kind of my rant, and it looks like the timer says that I'm like getting to like half an hour here with the vlog. Um, I want to know what you're thinking when it comes to jobs, housing, New Zealand specifically. If you want to help this channel, we've got a radio station that I will be replaying this video as sort of like an audio file. But you can get behind the scenes stuff over there at kiwiradio.nz. That project is non-profit, okay, guys? So that doesn't make any money. But, even if you can do the $2 a month or whatever, it all adds up. 100 of you do that, why not? I'm being very hopeful here because 1% of 1% of YouTubers or influencers will get anything really. Not that I'm an influencer. I'm just a guy in a desperate, vulnerable rut in my life. I wanted to share it with people out there that maybe could be going through a tough time in 2024 as well. Maybe we can relate, we can bond, and share our stories in the trenches. Because before 2024 or before the lockdowns and everything like that, life was good, man. Life was good for me. And then it feels like one thing after another, it's like a race to the bottom. If you weren't young enough, or like if you weren't around, or you're too young to remember, we did have a global financial crisis in 2008. And I feel like since then, like the effects of that, we're really feeling it now in 2024. I've seen a lot of documentaries about poverty, how, like in Europe, women would sell their bodies because there was no work in their town, or men would go into crime, and they were in such desperate positions. And I feel like it's actually reached New Zealand, and there's a lot of people out there that are hurting behind the scenes, whether you're like living in your car or you're one paycheck away from being homeless. We're all feeling it, I feel, unless you're really the 1% of 1%, or you're an essential worker, whether that's be essential for the current status quo. Even then, right? Like you like, I love researching history because, they talk about how the generals of previous world wars, they'd be given these condos, and they were like better than the boots on the ground kind of guys, the front line. And I just feel like even if you are doing well, or you perceive yourself as doing well, like the job that you're doing now, like maybe you work in banking or something like that, is it actually to the detriment, and is your job filling your pockets, but also at the same time creating a lot of what do you call it? A lot of misery to people in your supply chain, whether it be the cobalt mines of South Africa or wherever it is, mining the raw materials of your latest tech gadgets. You know what I mean, right? Like, are you actually like, wait? I had the other day one of my other support workers that I was working with. It literally felt like the Truman Show. If you've seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey, those moments where he's like, his wife starts talking to him, and it's actually like built-in advertising, a native advertising kind of thing. Like, he did that to me, to one of those, I'll say it, the CCP run app that you can buy very, very cheap goods, that undercut everything else. I won't say the name because I don't want to give them free publicity. But the one, Shop Like a Billionaire, that one. And I was like, are you serious? Like, first of all, I don't have the extra money to spend anything other than the four walls, the essentials. But at the same time, it felt like the Truman Show, man. Like, everyone's got their little side hustles and things like that because they're just not earning. It's a race to the bottom. Speaking of side hustles, I have to say, guys, here's my native advertising. And it is a good native advertising because I use it myself every day. I still do the music thing. And before that, I hated working. I hated like dealing with the tax agents and like having to disclose like my expenses and everything, and getting calls from my ID, making sure, are my numbers correct in that. There was one app that I got introduced to, and that's HNRY, HNRY. It really does automate my additional income as a sole trader. And of course, they take a cut. But if you actually follow my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@KiwiRadioNZ, and there'll be a referral link at the bottom of this video where you can get yourself a $25 credit, and I'll get one. And why not? I don't think anyone's clicked on my referral links, but because in the act of the grind, hey, and they are a good app. They are a good app. But anyways, I want to know, before I close off this video, and I have no idea where I've driven. Where am I? Do you drive when you're trying to think? Do you vlog while you're trying to think? I think that's kind of like what I wanted to cover. I want to know what your opinions on housing, work. Are you feeling the pinch? Are you working minimum wage? Are you earning well, but at the same time, do you have debts? Like, where are you at, man? I feel like someone out there should be winning, right? But I actually will add this, and I should have like written down what I wanted to say today, but it's all up here. And this is what happens when you kind of like external monologue, whatever. My friend who works in insurance, he said that in the business world right now, a lot of companies have this kind of like mentality or motto, which goes like this: stay alive till 25, meaning, you know, like try and do what you can to keep your doors open until 2025. That's only a 12-month progression, guys. And yeah, even like my previous role, the CEO themselves were like on a fixed term contract, right? Like everything is sort of like fixed term, like nothing is guaranteed. Like, where are those jobs that you could go to and you're set for life, right? You've got overtime, you've got this, you've got that, you've got a union. Do you remember what a union is? Oh my goodness, speaking of union, right now, a lot of the train people in public transport have got an industrial action for wages. So there's a lot of that going on. The ports of Auckland as well, they're all kind of been doing that for ages. But I feel like everyone's a contractor. Everyone's a contractor. And even if you are an essential worker and you're kind of like guaranteed for life in your employment, and it seems all safe, has it all tipped? Are we at the end here or is it all zombie economies from here? I want to know your opinion. Please let me know. I think that's all I want to say. If you want to hear more about these kind of rants, let me know. This is really for myself, just to kind of air out my mind, get it all out there. I feel a little bit better. Maybe I'll go for a cycle or something. I always say that. Maybe I'll do this, but I never do. But my bike's ready. I should really go for a cycle. But what motivated me to do this YouTube video is I have seen other people struggle out there, and they've been saying, you know, it's taking them 6 or 7 months to find a job. And if that's my trajectory, man, I am going to be so underwater in that time frame. Like, I really need to find something ASAP, and it's only been a month. And so that just goes to show how little of a buffer that I had. And I'm, you know, I know like the Dave Ramsey principles and the 7 steps to financial well-being. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I've had to cash out investments and everything now just to kind of like get me through this really tough time. And it will only get worse. It will only get worse. It's terrible. Help me. Someone employ me, maybe, if you're in Auckland. I promise. I work hard. That is me. I'm Ralphie signing off from kiwiradio.nz. That's kiwiradio.nz. And I have no idea where I am right now in the car, so I will find my way home safely. I'll turn off the cameras now. There's dual cameras if you're watching this. I'll be doing some editing. I want to make this a good product. A product that nobody buys. I'm telling you. My self-esteem is at an all-time low. But if you do enjoy this, consider a subscription at kiwiradio.nz. Again, non-profit, but you know, we do what we can. And hopefully tomorrow morning I'll get back out there, apply for 100 more jobs, or however many more it takes, while working my 4 hours a week. Right now, casual contract, fun times. Let's go. Stay cool, stay creative, everybody. Bye.